I hope. I mean, I feel like if people want to know me, if they want to understand at all what I'm about, it's my photography, not my acting, and not even my directing.
Welcome to the Shaun Squad Society Podcast with your hosts, myself, Penny,
Cindy,
Dame Madonna,
and Doris.
Invite you to share our love and enthusiasm for all things Shaun Cassidy, from his teen idol days to his recent adventure back on the road again. Please join us for our stories and memories that connected us to those happy days that helped create the Shaun Squad Society Podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the Shaun Squad Society Podcast. We are so thrilled today to introduce our special guest, aren't we, girls? We've been waiting for today, and we are so excited for this. He is a familiar face, and everybody watched him as Frank Hardy from the Hardy Boys. And you also could have catch him running around on the beach in his red shorts as a lifeguard on Baywatch back in the day. Remember that show? That was a fun show. And his recent role was as Louis Osmond in the Greenhouse Academy that's airing currently on Netflix. You can catch that one. And additionally, he does take great pride in his photography work. He has a photography website called Shadowworks. You might want to check that website out, see all of his great photography. And lastly, you may have had him on your wall back in the day next to your other teen idol posters. And I'm talking about none other than Parker Stevenson. We are so excited you are on our show. Welcome to the Shaun Squad Society Podcast, Parker.
Yay, welcome,
Thank
Parker.
you.
Welcome.
Oh, I thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Hi, Parker. We are so excited that you have made time to talk with us today. And you know, we've all been following you on your social media pages. And it looks like you've been busy lately. You've attended a few fan shows like the Hollywood show and the Night of Dreams with Jimmy and Christy McNichol.
And it sounded like, I was reading on your social, it sounded like it was a really good time, like they were both fun. And I thought I'd just ask you real quickly if you had anything you wanted to share about that. I'm sure you probably had a great time.
I had a good time at both. I haven't done those kind of appearances in a long time. Just because of the pandemic and the industry being shut down and the strike and all that stuff. I've just been kind of doing my own thing. And I haven't done the LA show, autograph show in a bunch of years. You know, I got to, like Pamela Sue Martin, who I'm as close with as Shaun. Well, Pam was at that show. So she and I were together at that show. And then she came home with me and she spent the night before she flew out, and I get all that time. And I mean, those are great experiences that kind of come about only because of a connection like that.
Yeah, I saw her picture. I saw you post the picture of her. That was very nice.
Oh, she's so great. Pam's so fun. And I've had my relationship with her goes back even farther than with Shaun, because I did a movie with Pamela 2 years, maybe 3 years before Hardy Boys Nancy Drew. So we go way back, and we've just always had a really, really great, easy friendship. So those things are nice surprises. Good things can come out of those events.
Those long friendships,
yeah. Really, really nice.
just like us.
The fans love them, Parker. They love when you guys come out and you interact and connect with us. And it is really, as much as it is for you, it means that much to us.
Oh, great.
Definitely. Yeah, next time you're in Chicago, we're going to be there.
I will.
Yes.
I love Chicago, and I've done that Chicago show, and it's really fun.
Oh, you
There's
have?
a morning show there that I really like.
When's the next one?
We want to get a ticket now.
We're there.
I don't know.
I
when the
found
next
out
one
about
is.
that Chicago show after you were here.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
saw like a thing on our local news that they were saying
WGN.
this week on WGN News, we had Parker Stevenson. I'm like, you had who, where?
Right? We were all doing you
We
that.
were like, wait a minute. How did I not know this?
Just like we missed Shaun on Oprah, right?
Right.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
we were so mad we missed Shaun on Oprah.
Oh, one of my questions is, and I have like a couple if you don't mind, what is your favorite episode of the Hardy Boys and Baywatch?
Well, I loved, actually, I would say I love the pilots of both. The Baywatch pilot, because it was a 2 hour, and it was a little more complicated and dramatic than the regular episodes. And the Hardy Boys pilot, because it really, the whole show was kind of born in the process of doing a 24-hour shoot, which was a kind of a trailer for the network to buy the show, which they did. And then in the interim between that 24-hour shoot and putting together the rest of the episode, the show really kind of it came into its own. That's when they realized what the show could be.
Well, that's really interesting. I don't think I read that.
I have heard about that first recording. That took a long time.
Was that the one about the
Dracula?
Dracula, yes. The first episode that took you guys 24 hours to record. The sun started coming up and everything. Was that the Dracula episode?
Yeah, and it's the one that we were in our underwear riding around in motorcycles, graveyard.
I did read that. I remember that.
All of that. But what happened was there was an order. The executive producer, Glenn Larson, he got approval to shoot for one day and put together a little trailer so the network could see what he was thinking about. And he shot for 24 hours. Shaun says it was 25 hours. And he might be right, because I know the last shot of the day, of the full 24-hour, 25-hour day, they put us in a grave in the graveyard and put a tarp over the top of us so that it would still look dark. And that's how we did the last shot, because the sun came up.
That is interesting.
Yeah,
so I got to know Shaun really quickly.
I guess so. 25 hours with someone, you'll know him.
With lots of coffee, I might add.
Yeah, and two teen idols in the dark together.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Well, another question is, and I have your sheet here of all the characters.
Oh, wait, you didn't mention Baywatch.
Your Baywatch?
Favorite Baywatch episode?
Yeah, the pilot, Panic at Malibu Pier, which was the 2-hour.
Well, speak of
and
that.
That's sold Baywatch. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, speak of that. When I was looking at some of your photography, there's the a photo of the lifeguard huts. Is that from Baywatch?
No.
Okay.
But I live where we did Baywatch. So I'm at the beach all the time.
Oh, nice.
In the winter, they pull those towers back away from the beach to keep them away from the water in the winter storms, and they put them together. I think are you talking about 3 towers together?
Yes.
Yeah. That's how that happens. They put them together during the winter to protect them.
Oh, good. That's neat. That's a neat story. Yeah. So another question is, like I said, your rap sheet of all the characters you've played, and you have played in many, many movies and miniseries and film. And so what out of all of them was your favorite? Or do you even have one?
I do have things that, a lot of the work that we do as actors, is work that comes along and we audition for it, or if we're lucky we get an offer and off we go. And some turn out to be a lot more personal than others. And in a funny way, the miniseries North and South, which was very melodramatic and a big, glamorous soap opera about the Civil War, became very personal, because while I was making that, it was 6 months on location, I learned that my great-great-grandfather was commanding general at Gettysburg.
Right.
Oh.
I saw that. I saw his picture.
You saw his picture. He's a very funny-looking guy. He's a
That's
very
what you
funny-looking
said
guy.
before. Yeah.
Yeah. George Gordon Meade, and it turned out that he was a family member, and I grew up going to my grandparents' house, and there was a big portrait of him. It was just a scary guy in the staircase. But then learning that, suddenly it wasn't long ago that my family members were in those battles and in that conflict, and suddenly it became more than just doing a fluffy soap opera that's kind of fun. It suddenly was, this actually has roots in something real and difficult and all that, and personal.
Yeah.
So that's where a project can really shift over sometimes. In a funny way, the thing I just did called Greenhouse Academy, because I love the kids that were in the cast so much. There are 7 or 8 principal kids who were all so fun to work with and hardworking and talented, and I was kind of the figurehead, so I was around all the time, but they were really doing the heavy lifting. But I really got to know those kids, and that I really felt like kind of an older mentor to them. I felt like I could help them in ways.
That's awesome.
Whether it's dealing with production problems or dealing with personalities on the set, or I'm glad that I could be there and help out that way, not just come in and do lines and go.
Yeah, that's great. Well, speak of your family name, Meade. I actually have a client, and I was framing some playbills for her a couple months ago,
Mhm.
and she actually has your mother's playbill.
No way.
Yes.
No way.
Yes.
Is that from Inherit the Wind?
Yes,
What's that-
Inherit
what's it
the
from?
Wind. She has the playbill from Inherit the Wind. And I probably framed like 25 different playbills for her. And
Yeah.
it didn't really mean anything to me. Some of them I was familiar with. And then when I was doing some research and I saw that, I asked her, and she goes, "Oh yeah, that's what it's from." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I had no clue when I was doing this."
That's so fun.
So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
really
pretty
fun.
cool. Yeah, we usually do a 6 degrees
Right.
on the show on
Yes.
every episode, and that's kind of my 6 degrees, I guess.
Yeah. That's
yeah.
amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I see.
Really
That
cool.
was really cool. Yeah, but I do have another question, real quick, on your photography, and I know one of the other girls is going to go more in detail of that, but I saw that you had taken a picture. It looks like it's 2 pillars, and I want to say it's from 9/11, the 9/11 memorials, and it has a 9:03 in it, like as 9:03 a.m.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
was
That's
that?
that's the Oklahoma City bombing
Oh,
memorial.
okay.
Yeah.
Because I have visited all of the 9/11 memorials, and
Mm.
I was at the Flight 93, and I thought,
Oh,
was that there? Because it just really stuck out to me that I had seen that, but that's the Oklahoma bombing. Okay. Thank
Yeah,
you for
yeah,
clarifying
yeah.
that.
yeah. Well, you were really close on it. That is exactly. I don't think I identify it as that's what it is.
Oh.
Yes, I remember that day.
Just have the image, but that's you were spot on.
Well,
That is exactly what that
well,
is.
thank you.
Parker, I have questions.
She has questions. She always has
You
questions.
go, Doris.
I've been
I'm
waiting.
ready.
I've been waiting a little time. I won't say how many years, but a little time to ask you this first question.
Yes.
When I was a little girl, Parker, I would watch a lot of TV, and I saw you in a Prel shampoo commercial. You were standing there, and you were in the shower, and you were washing your hair, and you said
Oh,
your
my
hair was
God.
fluffy and puffy or something like that.
His hair was and is fluffy and puffy.
And a few weeks later, maybe 3 months later or something, the Hardy Boys came on, and before I focused on the other character, Joe Hardy, I looked at Frank
Yeah.
Hardy and said, "That's the guy from the Pro commercial that was naked in the shower in my TV."
And I think in some interviews his hair is mentioned. Yes. His hair is
Yes.
mentioned in interviews.
Do you remember that commercial?
I remember it well because I remember. I mean, that's how I started doing commercials. I was in New York, at 14, running around doing commercials, and for a long time I didn't get any. But okay, I was running around New York, and that was fine. And then I started to get them, and I get things like the Prel commercial, or I did a Spam commercial, and I did over 100 commercials. And the Prel commercial stands out because when I went to show up to film the commercial, they looked at me and they went, "Oh no, your hair is much too fluffy. We need to dampen it down." And this goes against truth in advertising. They took Vaseline and they put Vaseline in my hair
Wow.
to make it
So
look
funny.
greasy, to make it all greasy and gross. And then, of course, I look different when they did the Prel, which is really strong shampoo, But yes, I see those commercials now and then. People will send them to me, links on YouTube stuff, and they just crack me up. I mean, I was not a model. I was just a goofy kid.
Well, I was just trying to see if I could pull up the commercial, but I do have a question. I did read or hear on one of your interviews that your parents let you move to New York at 14.
Yes, although there was a caveat. I was there staying in a friend of theirs apartment because they would leave every summer. And my parents somehow trusted me to be on my own at 14 and run around the city and go to auditions. And that's really all I did. I mean, I wasn't really doing anything wild and crazy. That just kind of wasn't in my wheelhouse. I would walk the city and I'd go to 3 or 4 meetings a day and eat peanut butter and tuna fish and walk in the park
actor's
and go to
diet.
museums.
Yeah, the actor's
diet.
The actor's diet. It is. It's totally
It is.
the actor's diet.
Yes.
Yeah,
Or the
seafood and
Elvis
nuts.
diet, whichever way you want to look at it.
Elvis had bananas on his or
Yeah.
something. Yeah. Well, that's amazing because, like when we were kids, 14 years old seemed so grown up. But in today's world, 14-year-olds aren't even allowed to babysit, I don't think. So I just can't picture little 14-year-old Parker roaming the streets of New York.
I can.
He was taking pictures.
I can see it.
It was, I was taking pictures.
That's what I thought.
You know
Yeah.
what? And I can't say I wasn't lonely, doing that because I wasn't social and I was too shy to kind of, reach out to people and stuff. I'd go
Really?
and have my meetings and I'd do my auditions and I go back and I just kind of did my own thing. And then I go to school during the school season, but even sometimes holidays, I'd be in the city on my own.
Mhm.
And I'm grateful. I mean, my parents, I think because of my mother having been an actress, my father didn't approve of it, but I don't think he had a choice in it. And I was able to pay for school. So I was independent. I did my own thing. And in that way, it was a godsend. And I learned to have some independence.
Well, absolutely. It makes you grow up fast.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm comfortable in my own company, and that I think I learned in those teenage years. Do my own thing. And that's probably where I got my appreciation for art and architecture and all that New York has. It's so amazing.
As the kids today say, you do you.
That's true.
You do you. Yeah.
You do you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's what my boss tells me.
So, Parker, I have a 2nd
Mhm.
question. I can't decide which one of these two I'm going to ask you next. So I'll just go with on the Hardy Boys. All of these guest stars, and I have my favorites. I really love Bernie Taupin, and I really love when Valerie Bertinelli was on there. But what was your favorite guest star? Or maybe you have more than one. Who are your favorite guest stars, like I say?
Well, Joseph Cotton is one of them. Maybe a lot of people won't know Joseph Cotton unless they know Orson Welles and and his body of work and his players and all that. And Ray Milland was another one who was a big star, got an Academy Award for Lost Weekend in the 50s, I think. And I would sit around with them, in the 10 days or 2 weeks sometimes for episodes, and just pick their brains about what Hollywood was like in the 30s and 40s and 50s. What was the studio system? What was it like socially? And they tell me all the stories about Hearst Castle and the parties up there, and just the way it all worked, how they got their breaks and all that. Sitting at the studios where all that all took place was magical. A lot of that's all broken up now. It's not around, but I got to kind of get a sense of all that.
Well,
I mean, even when we were doing the Hardy Boys, Shaun and I, we each had these little bungalows right near our soundstage. And the bungalow between us was Alfred Hitchcock's. And he'd come and go, and we had lunch with him on occasion. And so all of that really old school
that kind of
Hollywood
ties into
history.
some other episodes we've had, and
This comes up a
we
lot.
were just talking about old Hollywood because Ryan Cassidy has a book called James Cagney Was My Babysitter. And we were just speaking of old Hollywood and James Cagney and all of that old Hollywood stuff that we all know and love. And for you to even mention those people as your favorite stars, that touches me because a lot of people don't connect to old Hollywood like that.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I kind of grown up watching those movies when I was really little, and so it was the old Hollywood people that would come in and do little turns, and then it was like Valerie coming in. They were
A fresh
we
new
would
face.
get people whose careers were just starting.
Right.
Melanie Griffith came in and did an episode right in the beginning of her career, and Tippi was on the set, to kind of make sure she had everything she needed and that she was okay. But they were young. I mean, it was a place that really young people could come and do work in a show that wasn't going to be violent and it wasn't going to get gross. Or, it was a nice intro for people.
I was reading the list, and it seems like if they were on TV or about to go on TV, they were on the Hardy Boys. It's a long list of people who had their beginning, first role or maybe third or fourth role. They were on the Hardy Boys.
And Doris and I have a
Yeah.
story about recording the Hardy Boys back then in those days.
Oh yeah, we used
It's
to.
so funny.
We used to take our little cassette player and put our microphone by our TV
Yep.
before VCR, before we could afford a VCR,
Yeah.
and we would record the Hardy Boys. And I still have my little cassette recording.
She still does. I lost
Yeah.
mine, but she's afraid to play it because it might crumble.
It might break the tape.
It might
Yeah.
crumble. And I was living by the airport,
Yeah.
so I would get mad because every time I would try to record the Hardy Boys, the plane would go over, and I'd tell my mom, can you please call the airport and tell them not to fly over our house when the Hardy Boys is on?
And I would get mad because my younger brothers would burst into
Yeah.
the room and scream real loud.
Yeah.
Just to interrupt my
Oh.
recording of the Hardy Boys.
It was the only way we could record back then, so that was really serious. Sunday night
Yeah,
was serious.
Well, it got me out of Sunday night church. So, the
Oh.
Hardy Boys was my church.
That's right. That's right.
Well, that kind of leads me right into my third question. So
Yeah.
you've recently, and I have mine right here with me, you sold scripts, your Hardy Boys and some Baywatch scripts. And I'm wondering, I have Acapulco Spies, and I love that you signed it and you sent such a great package with it, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But
Oh.
what prompted you to start selling your scripts?
I have saved every script I've ever done, and they've been in storage for decades, going all the way back. Every script, every project I've ever been in, I've
Even
kept the
from
scripts.
Gunsmoke?
Even from Gunsmoke, all the way
Wow,
back.
that's
And when
way
I
back.
did guest spots, when I was young, Streets of San Francisco or Hotel or whatever shows that I was doing, I just always kept the scripts. I'm
That's
not sure
amazing.
why. It wasn't that I expected to have a lot of scripts. I just did. You know, they just kind of went in the closet, went in the box. But so they were all in storage, and they've been in storage for 30, 40 years. And during the pandemic, there was nothing to do. And so I thought, okay, it's time for me to get rid of this storage. You know, I've moved many times. I've had, a lot of different places I've lived. And it seems every time I move, I end up with a whole nother bunch of stuff that goes in storage. So I started going through all my storage, and I found all these scripts. And people have asked me over the years, do you have any scripts? Do you have any memorabilia? And I've always just not wanted to deal with it. But then I thought during the pandemic, I'm going to find homes for these scripts. I've been approached many times by collecting groups or people who have memorabilia, marketing companies, and they buy scripts and then they sell them or they put them on eBay. And I didn't want it to go that way. And one friend of mine who has a very successful company said, well, what you should do is you should copy the scripts, keep the originals, and you can keep making copies and just sell the copies. And I was kind of horrified by that because that's not the intention. The intention is to put the real script in the hands of people that love the show, not a copy. My script, it's full of my notes, where I had my coffee cup on top of it, or, I was in the back of my bag as I'm going back and forth to the set. It was to sell something real from that time in that show. So that's what I did. And the best part of it was, frankly, it's been a lot more of a hassle than if I just given them to an auction house. But it's been such fun communicating, like with you, Doris, back and forth about what script and which one did you like and what do you think you were interested in, and he'd send you a picture of the script, you could actually see it, but getting to know people a little bit and hearing their stories and their connections with the show gave me a connection to the audience that I've never had. I don't particularly like doing theater because it's just grueling, and as much as I love the work, I don't do it for applause. I do it because I love the work. I'm not doing it to affect an audience. I'm doing it because the work means something to me. And so I haven't had that connection with the audience through most of my 56 years or whatever I've been doing. And doing this, placing these scripts, has given me a sense of that. It's been really great. It's been a real
you want that connection.
bonus
Yeah.
in these tough years that actually was part of what my last couple of years' experience was placing these scripts, communicating with people, talking to people, and hearing about them. And it's been great. It's been a really, really big gift to me.
Well, that is cool, Parker, because you mentioned something, memorabilia and what means something to the people. And Cindy and I always talk about, we have boxes of memorabilia. And I've carried this stuff with me, as you did, for the last 40 some odd years. I have tons of Hardy Boys stuff, my Hardy Boys fan club, all of my Tiger Beat magazines, tons of stuff. And my life wasn't complete until I got the Parker package, as I like to call it. But and then I look at it and I'm like, we're all connected now. And this is going to always be something that I have that was on the set of the Hardy Boys. And I really, really appreciate it.
I'm so glad you feel that way. That's the point. The point is that was, for that period of time, that was my life. That's what I was focused on solely. That was a part of my life. And so that going out feels wonderful, feels really nice. It's really nice to me.
In the hands of somebody who really, and you appreciate it too when you get it. That you know that we're going to take care of it if somebody really wants it that bad.
It's like the records.
I do. I do. Something happens to me, then someone's not going to go, oh, look at all this old stuff. I know they're placed somewhere, and someone will enjoy it, and someone will pass it on in some way that will have its own life, its own journey. That's really cool.
Well, I'm glad you did that. It does mean something. Doris talks about it all the time.
Yeah, I do. And I brought it with today. I haven't shown it to anyone. No,
we haven't seen it yet.
I have never, ever, ever, ever shown it to anyone because that's how special it was to me. But I brought it today, and I'm going to show it to my co-host. And Dame, you can see it next time you're in the studio.
Yep.
Okay.
Great.
Well, I do have another quick question that I forgot to ask earlier. Can you share your lunch with Alfred Hitchcock with us?
Your lunch? What'd you have for lunch?
Well, he had lunch with Alfred.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was just wondering if you could...
I don't know why, there's a regular commissary you could go for lunch at Universal, at the studio, that everyone would go to. And then there was the executive lunchroom commissary. That was a special place, and that was the head of the studio, Wasserman and Sid Sheinberg and all these guys, the heads of the studio then, and all the top, producers, and people like, Hitchcock would be there. And I don't know why, but they would include Shaun and I in those lunches. And, we're kids, I mean, we're really kids. And somehow it would end up that, like, Shaun and I would be on either side of Hitchcock.
Wow.
My first, the memory that really stuck with me was after I sat down, and Hitchcock was there, and I'm sitting looking around this table going, whoa, why am I here?
You're taking all that in.
And he, and he turned to me, and, in his Hitchcock condescending way said, "And who are you?"
I can imagine that.
I would have slid under the table. I think it would have scared me.
Very intimidating.
Yeah, it would. Totally. And it summed up everything. it summed up everything. And I didn't have an answer for him.
I was going to say, what's your answer? Did you get your name out, or you couldn't say anything?
Well, you could have.
I don't know. I think I asked him something like if the food was any good or something. I don't know.
I don't know. I think at that point I would have been confused and said, "I'm Frank Stevenson," or something. Because are you Frank Hardy or
I'm just
Parker
a fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just a fan, Mr. Hitchcock. That's why I'm here. I'm just a fan.
Yeah, I snuck into the back door with my fake ID, my fake pass.
Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely felt like I didn't belong there most of the time, but that was the fun of it, because it was there were 40 shows being filmed there. It was really busy. The tour was just starting. Those trams were just beginning to go through the studios. And while we were making the Hardy Boys, the announcement came down that from now on, all filming would stop when the trams came through. Before they would stop for filming to not disrupt filming. Then it was changed that when the trams came through, you had to stop filming to not disrupt the trams, because the trams were bringing in more money than all studio production combined.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting
fun fact.
Everything was changing. It was all shifting and changing. Because Shaun and I were blessed that we really got to kind of run around the set and be in that studio during that time. It was really
I can't imagine. Time. Yeah, that was pretty cool. But in our first season, we did an episode on the characters of Shaun. Mm-hmm. And, and the more research we did, I was just in awe of, like, the stars. I just kept saying star-studded. And,
On the Hardy Boys, yeah.
Well, not just a Hardy Boys, but everything that Shaun, played a character in.
Right.
And especially Once Upon a Texas Train. But then when I'm looking through your stuff, you just blew Shaun out of the water. I mean, the actors that you were with, Sam Elliott and Burt Reynolds. And I mean, I can go on and on, but these guys are telling me to move on. No, I'm kidding. But I mean, how fortunate, like you said, with, your launches and the people you were around. But I mean, all the other actors that you got to, be with every day or, during the time of, performing the shows. And what did you do with Sam Elliott? Wasn't that
the lifeguard?
Yeah, the lifeguard and stuff.
Yeah,
I mean,
lifeguard.
how cool,
Yeah.
And then with Burt Reynolds Burt Reynolds directed the Alfred Hitchcock's episode, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. And that Martin Sheen and Robbie Benson.
Martin Sheen, and Robbie Benson. That was hilarious.
Well, speaking of lifeguard, I think that's one reason they tried you out for Baywatch, because you had been on that show with Sam Elliott.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny?
They said, you just seem like you could play a lifeguard. And I know they'd seen lifeguard.
Well, with that hair?
Yeah.
So it was sort of like, I mean, I was an East Coast preppy kid, and that was fine, but I am still not, a California kind of beach guy. And so when they announced that, well, we just think you could, be so credible as a lifeguard, I'm thinking, okay, you saw a lifeguard. You saw me in red trunks standing with Sam. Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
One thing leads to another.
I love Sam Elliott. I mean, all my life. And
oh, my God. Who doesn't?
Who doesn't love
Sam Elliott? Oh.
But when I was little, I remember I didn't see that movie. And then I was just doing more research. And it was like, oh, yeah, I remember now. I wanted to see Lifeguard because the guy from the shower and Sam Elliott.
Yeah.
But
connected in one way or another, right? It's always a connection.
We do this thing where we connect everything. And it seems like every week when we record our podcast, somebody we're talking about was on Alfred Hitchcock.
Mm-hmm.
So you did Alfred, Shaun did Alfred.
Did David?
Listen
David
to me.
Yeah, David did.
We did an episode on Shaun and David together, and we found out that David did it. So that is so cool to me that's a connection.
Well, and not just Alfred Hitchcock, Murder, She Wrote, Matlock.
Those were the shows going around those days. That was the, the shows to be on.
Yeah, and then I think you and David both did Gunsmoke. And so there's always a connection with a lot of these shows. But when I started looking at everything, I'm like, I did see him on Bull. I did see him on Judging Amy. I did, And so I tried to go back just to, like refamiliarize myself to, some of them and then listen to a lot of your interviews. But like I said, I just got what was I going to say? Just like in all of the actors that you have been around.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you were in awe too.
Yeah.
Well, I was. I really was. I mean, even on that Alfred Hitchcock episode, sitting around and hanging with Martin Sheen, and Martin was telling me about when he had his heart attack in the Philippines doing Apocalypse Now.
Wow.
And they pulled him off the bus, and he was laying in the grass, holding onto the grass, looking up at the sky, wondering, am I going to make it? Am I going to make it? Am I going to make it?
Wow.
And I mean, so there's something about when you're working together, especially with interesting kind of people that really care about the work, you get close really quickly. It's almost an instant mutuality.
It's a family.
How this turns out will affect everybody. So everybody really puts their heart into it, and you get the chance. You get the chance to kind of get a sense of what is this journey going to be like. You go to acting classes, and they're helping you learn how to hit your mark and find interesting ways to do the character. But no one's saying you're going to hit this trial, you're going to hit this challenge or this question. How far are you willing to go? How much you're going to play politics, and what happens when it gets dark, and what happens, no one helps you deal with David and his fame, no one's saying, let me talk to you about what fame's going to be like.
Right.
But when I worked with Burt, I talked with Burt a lot about stuff like that. And he was remarkable that he would say, I once said to him, you've had a career like Cary Grant. You've been number one box office for 11 years. I think it was 11 years in a row. And how have you done this? How have you maintained that? And he said, there are a lot of guys that are better looking, more talented than you or I, but they didn't hang in there. And basically what he was saying is, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So do your work, hang in there. You're going to get breaks and you're going to have disappointments. But he helped lay out what a lot of people did with me. They weren't trying to be a mentor. And I guess that's what I did on Greenhouse. I just wanted to help. I wanted to help ease people's way in the part that no one else is going to share with them. Really invaluable. That those war horses that we got to work with would drop information to us kindly and gently about what we might run into and how we might deal with that.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think you and Dame have that in common because she's been a teacher for 30 years now, I believe. And I think she has some questions for you as well.
Sure.
Yeah, you started out studying for, architecture in Princeton, but I realized that your mom was very supportive, and at first your dad was kind of reluctant. But my question goes into photography because that's one of your hobbies and something that you love to do. I know that you're talented that way. I know at an early age that I started at the same age as you, and I would start taking, photos for weddings. I mean, for people to trust me at such a young age was amazing. And we both like taking pictures of weddings and something that we see that is beautiful because life's so hard, but photography will catch something extra special for us. I read that you love Italy because of the food, but also because of the photography that you could do when you were there. You like that you could grab those type of pictures. And you said that if someone is moved in any way by your images or your photographs, then it worked. And one of the pictures that I just love that you took, it's the cross in the rain, and it's under landscape. And that cross is an example of wanting to go on a road trip and seeing something and catching that. And for that one instant, you felt like you saw something special. So something special by taking that out in photography is amazing. And you even have the 10 Commandments for the great travel photos. And I really look closely into those. And you're right. So if I go on trips, I need to travel light. I need to shoot quickly for something because now with digital cameras, we can take as many as we want. And we can also erase as many as we want. Well, on my phone, I have 300,000 because it is kind of an addiction.
Wow. Oh,
yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. And I actually printed out your 10 Commandments.
Yeah, I have those too. And I have those to look at because I'm a photographer besides just being a teacher. There's something in photography that is special to us. So my question is, can you let others know why photography is something that you love, especially if I missed a point? I know you have something online called Shadowworks. Am I correct?
Yeah, Shadowworks. Yeah. I put that up years ago, maybe 7-8 years ago. And that's a good kind of representation of the more of the studio stuff I was doing. But it also, as you mentioned, it had some landscape and some architecture and some portraits. And I was doing some headshots for people, but I don't really shoot headshots because headshots are, we usually as actors, we just want something that makes us look good.
Yeah.
We just want to look good. We don't care if it's interesting. We just want to look good. And that's not what interests me. What interests me is hopefully is a flattering presentation of someone because we all deserve that. There's enough hard shots we get. So, but more than just something flattering, something meaningful.
Yes.
So the Shadowworks is a mixture of stuff. My Instagram, which started as only photography, quickly morphed into lots of other things just because of life. But there's a lot of stuff on my Instagram that's much more current and more what I'm shooting now.
Okay, good.
Specifically because of what you just described. To carry around a 35 millimeter Nikon or a Hasselblad or whatever you're shooting. And you got to turn it on. You got to lift it up. You got to make sure the light's right and get the focus going, even if it's autofocus. All that. By the time you go to take that shot, which is fine in the studio when everything's being pre-lit and organized and controlled. But once you step out into kind of a more of a street photography setup where you're just kind
architecture. Yeah.
Yeah. The architecture, it's a matter of light, really. As much as anything. And so you can wait for the light or look for the light. But I shoot just by default most of the time now with my phone, like you described, because I can raise it and shoot. I see something, I can shoot it. I don't even need to look. I can catch it right away. And I did the second line event for Prince's funeral in New Orleans a couple years ago with a small handheld camera. And those became a show in New Orleans that sold out and was really rewarding for me. They were big images, 4 feet by 6 feet, and they were it had all the energy and grief and celebration and ethnic mix, cultural, financial mix of all those people for that 6-hour march. And that's where the photography becomes something else. It's not a pretty picture anymore. It's if you walk in a room, and I have this when I go to museums, I can walk through a museum, nice, and I'll turn the corner, I go, and it takes my breath away. Something takes my breath away. And it's a combination of composition and color and format, and it stops you, it moves you because it connects to you. And that's what I look for. That's what I hunt for when I shoot. I'm always looking for something that will, that cross you mentioned, a lot of people respond to that. And more than I ever thought. That happened because I was driving across Oklahoma and a storm came. And it was bad. It was really dark, and the rain was overwhelming. And then it turned to hail, and all the cars kind of dove in under the overpasses, which I didn't know is what people did. But it was just me, and
scary.
And as it started to lighten a little bit, I kind of pulled the car out, and there was a quick kind of clearing, and there in that little clearing through the hail, clouds, and everything that was coming down was that cross. And that shot is to my windshield. The windshield wipers at the bottom of that frame, and that's the first thing I saw after hiding under that overpass, thinking it was going to shatter my windshield.
Well, that's God saying He was protecting you.
Well, it says all kinds of things, and I'm not particularly. I'm spiritual, but not particularly religious. I was raised Episcopalian, but I don't go to church every day. My focus is kind of shifted into other things, but But that does say something. That moments happen, and those moments can be miraculous, and bad things can happen out of nowhere that are devastating. But those surprises are kind of often what I find my photography now is about. It's that or portraits.
Yeah, and what's really neat is when somebody looks at a picture, it's different. What they see is different than somebody else. What I took from it may be different than what you took from it. So it's neat to actually be talking to you right now and knowing what you saw. Yeah.
And I don't title most of my pictures what it was practically. I want people to have their own experience of that, whatever they see. And if it moves them for whatever reason, that's what I'm after.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was definitely an eye catcher when I was looking at your photos. And
I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
Beautiful. Yeah, like I said, I knew Dame was going to be talking more about your photography, so I saved all that for her. But it is very common that we pull over in the overpasses when it's pouring rain or hail.
Or a tornado, too.
Or for tornadoes.
I live in
it. Yeah.
This is my home, Oklahoma, so
you're in Tornado Alley.
Talking about. Yes. Yeah, I actually have another question for you when we get done talking about photography.
Oh, yeah, Parker, I was going to tell you, I do photography, too, on the side. And there were a couple pictures that I really loved that I took. I like to take sunset pictures for some reason. And I was in high school, and I was at the amusement park one day, and all of a sudden this beautiful sunset was there, but silhouette of the roller coaster in front of it was so cool. I took this picture, and I just love it. And you don't know at the time when you take it, because some pictures you take and you like and you don't like, but this picture just turned out great of this sunset at the park, and it's just got that roller coaster silhouette. And I don't know, I just loved that picture ever since I took that. And then my second favorite picture was when I was in Hawaii. And of course, many people have taken that picture of the Waikiki coastline with Diamond Head in the background. And I just took a great picture of that one day, and I just love that one. So photography I love also, but just kind of a side thing I will try to capture once in a while, but I love it.
I think everybody has a little bit of loving photography in them. I grew up really wanting to be a photographer, and I remember buying my first 35 millimeter when I was in high school, and I joined the Film and Camera Club, and I never got extremely good at it, but I was that person too. You take that picture and that really good one, and you know that it means something and it stands out. And like you guys are saying now with the cell phones, you
it's easier now
to your heart's content. And I remember sharing some pictures, and people are like, "Oh, are you a photographer?" No, I got lucky.
Nope.
Because I know sometimes I can see something in the littlest caterpillar or something.
And back then was all film, right? We had to get our film developed, so we had to wait for this picture to show up.
Yeah.
And
it was like a present coming in. Yeah.
Yes.
We couldn't wait to open our present.
Go to the photo mart. But Parker, I wanted to ask you a question real quick. Actually, it's not a question. It's more of a comment. The Jetty, the book you photographed the cover for, I think that is just beautiful. It's it's a beach scene. And here, I'll read it real quick. It says, Parker Stevenson photographs Christy Lee Rogers for the book cover of the Jetty. And it's just a very beautiful ocean scene, a lady walking out into the ocean, and then there's like a kind of a cloudy sky. And I don't know if you remember it, but I wanted to compliment you and tell you I really love that photograph.
Oh, thanks. Well, I really appreciate that because Christy herself is an astounding photographer. I first met her because I saw her work up in a printing lab in LA, and I wanted to get a headshot from her. And she said, "No, I don't do headshots." But she said, "But if you'll go underwater and pose underwater for me, I'll do your headshot."
Underwater.
Because a lot of her work is underwater. She's above water, but she shoots figures and people with one light very dramatically. It's very Caravaggio, like the Renaissance. They're super dramatic images. And so I did that for her. But by the time we got done, after 3 hours at the bottom of my swimming pool, I didn't feel like doing a headshot. So I then called the favor back in when I was shooting that book cover. And she originally grew up in Hawaii. She's comfortable with the water. She's out on this rock jetty, and there were big waves. And at one point, she even got knocked off the jetty and got back up. Then in this wet, long gown with that sunlight setting behind her. And that became a series of maybe 20 images from which that one shot was chosen for the book cover. The editor, publisher finally chose that one image. I had others that I actually liked better, but they were all really beautiful. That one is probably the most traditional. We're really good friends. We stay in touch, and you should look up her work online. People in your audience, Christy Lee Rogers, amazing stuff. It's CHRISTY. You'll see her work, and you'll be spellbound.
Yeah, what nice words you have to say for. Well, my second question, it's been mentioned that you and Shaun had chemistry from the beginning. In a different interview, you said that you liked his dry humor. Do you have any funny stories or memories of being on the set together? You mentioned one before, but anything funny?
Yeah, I mean, right from the beginning. I mean, Shaun and I were from different universes when we first met. Like, we came together, but what we did have was there was just. It's an appreciation for the absurd or the unusual or the silly, or I don't know what it is, but we really enjoy each other's company. We just enjoy the way we talk to each other and the things we say. And just from the beginning, that's what made us like brothers. We had connection. And I think that's why we were both cast together. And I think it was probably an addition for the show that we had a comfortable, fun relationship always. And that's why we're still really close. I consider him a brother.
And
we
I think
are really close.
Weren't you kind of a stability for him also while he was doing his touring and singing and all that? I read somewhere that you were kind of a grounding for him.
That's a nice thought. I don't think that's probably true because, he would work his 5 days on the show, and we'd finish off at 10, 11, 12, whatever. And he'd run out of there and he'd fly off to 2 cities over the weekend and do his big concerts and fly back in the middle, at 3 a.m. Monday and go to work on the Hardy Boys. So wow. I wasn't really there as a mentor for him, on the set. I was with him all the time for 3 years, 5 days a week. But once weekends came, he had his managers and his mom and his brother, and other people to kind of, guide him through all that. I think that's probably not, but
It's
I think he did.
Things they wrote, but didn't really have a lot of validity.
Well, during the week with the filming, he had him.
I think he probably looked up to me just because I was older. I think I'm
just 6
years older. Wow, it's more than I realized. Okay. But because of that, I think he probably was glad that I was there, because maybe I'd be a little more solid, than someone else that might have been running around partying all the time.
Us crazy girls screaming, yes.
Hey, we didn't just scream over Shaun. Hey, Parker, you were on my wall as well.
Yeah, you were on my wall too.
My wall.
Thank you.
Parker.
Thank you.
I have 4 of your dolls.
Oh,
cool.
Hardy boys.
Yeah, I actually read that both of you guys were romantics, but in a different way. It said Parker is a little more private than Shaun. He believes in keeping his personal life personal, and he's not very affectionate in public. But Shaun's affectionate all the time, and he doesn't mind letting the world know how he feels about someone special. Of course, this is old.
Are you reading from Tiger Beat,
Tiger Beat,
circa 1978?
That's what I was going to say. This had to be back in 78 or 79.
Yep.
I know, but I thought that was so cute.
I think that's kind of cute too. Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking along that note, I was just thinking about how he fell in love with his wife, and it was because of her cooking. It was chicken noodle soup, and that really drew you in. So she even has a show. Speaking of romance.
Yeah. Yes. And that is true. That was not in Tiger Beat. That is true.
Yeah, this is,
when I
this
met
is
her,
now. Yeah.
She borrowed a giant cooking pot from me. And so I loaned it to her, and 2 days later she came back with a huge thing of soup, and I tasted the soup. And I didn't know anything about her, but I tasted the soup, and I had never tasted anything like that. And that is my experience with her food. And she's been, an amazing chef for, well over 30 years. She's worked at Food Network for 15 years. She was head chef at Saturday Night Live and Morgan Stanley. She did corporate. She's had restaurants. She's worked for major celebs and sports figures. She was like Derek Jeter's chef for 7 years, the captain of the Yankees. I mean, she really loves what she does, and she doesn't make a big fuss out of it when she does it. But what comes out is more than the sum of its parts. It's amazing.
Videos.
She does it all the time. Oh, you did? Okay, good.
Well, I hope my turkey club sandwich comes out as good as the one she made.
Parker,
that was really good.
We're going on and on about her, but you haven't said her name.
Her name is Lisa Shaun.
Okay.
Lisa Shaun.
Okay.
And she goes by Chef by Day on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and all that stuff. And we did videos, I think, which was being referred to as during the pandemic.
Yes, we've watched
While
the
I was being
videos.
restless. She was still working for her clients. And during the quarantine period, we moved in with them. And I was really bored, out of my mind. And so I started filming her with my phone, just because. And then that started to turn into a thing, and then it turned into more of a thing, and we did over 200 videos.
And she would cook, and you would taste test.
Yeah, I'd taste test. It reminded me of years ago when I was a kid. I would watch a show called The Soupy Sales Show.
Yeah,
and
I remember.
Yes.
And remember that the arm of the puppet would come into the camera, and it would be White Fang or Black Tooth, or whoever it was, and then he would talk to it, and then the hand would go back out. Well, I became that hand that would take the food and eat it. And then after doing that for a while, then she got frustrated that I was never on camera. So then she would make me come around and eat it.
Yes.
And it just kind of, I don't know, became
funny.
a thing. And it was really
How
fun.
much weight did you gain over the pandemic doing this?
Yeah, it was challenging. It was challenging.
This kind of reminds me of Rachel Ray and her husband, because during the pandemic, they ended up working together. And
really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. He actually produced her show, and then was like helping her out a lot and taste testing. And then it got to the point where he was making cocktails to go with her entrees, and so it was pretty fun. Yeah, and I didn't know he was like an attorney and a rock star, and the stuff you learn from cooking shows, I'd say.
Yeah. No, that was a nice experience for us. I mean, look, these have been really hard years for everybody.
Right.
But that was a plus for me. I mean, I really, was with Lisa all that time, and she deals with lupus, so she had to be careful, and that's why we kept our quarantine really strict. But I got all that time with her, and it was wonderful. Yeah. Cut through social media stuff a bit. No, it was really nice.
Yes. I just want to switch gears real quick and focus back on architecture, which we haven't asked you yet. You went to school for that. So how did you get into it? How did you get out of it? What was that story with the architecture?
The architecture thing, just from the time I could think, I was fascinated by building and by spaces, architectural spaces. You know, it was Legos or there are other blocks that I had growing up as a kid. I was just always building stuff, and I liked the concept of how do you create a space. And even in architecture school, the highlight for me was when you build a model of something, and then I'd get down at the level of the table and look into that model and try to imagine, okay, what's this experience going to be like going in? The light coming from this side, the ceiling being that height, and going from that space to that space. All of that spatial awareness and what that can be, which is the same thing in photography. It's light and composition and its angles and its color, and that's architecture. And so I was sure I was always going to be an architect. I was only acting to get independence and have some money and hopefully,
your dad wanted you to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. My dad said to me, you're getting the false sense of the value of the dollar when I started to work, because he was concerned that money was coming in and I was booking jobs and I wasn't appreciating how hard it is to actually make a living. So I was always sure I was going to be an architect, and it was only lifeguard, which I left school for 3 weeks to go out and do just to pick up some bucks, that director, Daniel Petrie, who had gotten an Academy Award for Raisin in the Sun with Sidney Poitier.
Oh, I love that movie.
It's a beautiful movie. And that director had such a gentle touch as a director. I'd never experienced that. And that just made everything easy and natural. And suddenly I went back to school, and that sat with me for the next year and a half. What was that? That's not what I thought acting was. What was that whole experience? And by the time I then graduated, I didn't want to do architecture anymore, because a lot of my friends that had graduated and then go on finish graduate school couldn't get work because the whole market was a disaster. And so I enrolled at NYU in the business program when the Hardy Boys came up. And I thought, well, do I learn about money and business, or do I go to work? And I said, I'll go to work. Yeah. And that's when I made that choice to act and not do something else, whatever that was going to be.
Yeah. Do you still think about architecture, or I know it's not a career anymore, but
it's still not as a career, but it's very much, like I was invited to go shoot Richard Meyer's City Hall Public Library Law Court complex. It's like a full square block by 2 block complex in the Netherlands, and he did the Getty here in Los Angeles. He's a famous American architect, and I studied with him at Princeton. I did my independent work as a senior on him. So it's always that those ideas and those experiences are in everything I do. They're in my photography, they're in my acting, they're in my directing for sure. Looking through a camera, that's all about what feels right. As the audience, what feels right.
What looks right, yeah. What looks right feels right.
Yeah.
The image.
Yeah.
Education is never wasted.
It's not. It's not. And as I hear people question, the value of, going to college and the cost of it, and it is exorbitant and it's time consuming, but it's about being exposed to different things that might be something you click with. And if you click with it and then you go that direction, you still might not quite click with that, but it will tip you somewhere else. And at some point, all those things you're experiencing will be valuable in whatever you do. And specifically in what your experience of life on a day-to-day basis is. What do you see? What do you experience? What are you open to? What do you understand? All those ideas.
It's like that 6 degrees.
And there's your 6 degrees back to teaching and school.
Yeah, that's what I do also. Teaching and photography.
Good. I hope. I mean, I feel like if people want to know me, if they want to understand at all what I'm about, it's my photography, not my acting. And not even my directing, because my directing, I'm directing someone else's script, someone else's project. I had one project that really was from me. It was called Avalon Adventures of the Abyss, which was a 2-hour movie, backdoor pilot. And that was born out of me and something I wanted to do and the ideas of it. And it wasn't exactly what I'd had in mind. It got a little shifted over by the studio. But there's a lot in that was me. And that's really the only project I think that I've been involved in that represents me as much as my photography does.
Photography, that's wonderful.
Yeah, we want to share
Yep.
something fun with you before we let you go, though. This is retro.
Okay.
This is retro
Yep.
back to Tiger Beat. You know how you have these things, these articles and these questionnaires and Tiger Beat and things. And we came across an article about your 3 wishes you had back then.
Oh.
So we just wanted to check in with you. And now that it's the future, what happened with these 3 wishes? Do you remember what they were, first of all?
No, but this is a very funny question. I'm enjoying this because I can't imagine what I would have said then, and I probably did say it. I probably said other things too, but they selected this would be fun.
Okay, well, I'll say the first one, and then the other girls can take one. And the first one, you said, I'd like to own 2 homes, an apartment in New York City and a fabulous house on the beach in California.
Oh.
Now, I think you have a house in California on the beach.
Yep.
So
and it sort of fell into, I've been here forever. I never moved here. I never left my vacation. I stayed or something. But it's so great about Los Angeles. There aren't many cities that you can actually be at that are amazing, wonderful, cosmopolitan cities, and you're also at the ocean. Rio, you can go to Rio.
Yeah.
Rio's fun. Los Angeles. San Francisco's not quite the same. New Orleans is not quite the same. It's not really on the ocean. Miami, I guess.
Hawaii.
But it took me for Hawaii, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But it took me decades to realize, I can be at the beach. It's like it never occurred to me. So that my answer there presages that actually is what really makes this work for me, that I'm still here. And I really miss having a place in Manhattan, or at least near Manhattan, or out on Long Island somewhere. I really miss the East Coast. I had a place in Maine for years that I thought I would, just retire at and disappear at and spend the rest of my life at. That didn't quite work out that way. But I love New England. I love the East Coast and the architecture and the values and the art and music and just what that experience is there. So that was a really smart thing I said, and I hadn't quite
You did half of it.
But I'm not done yet. So
Yeah.
The second one, Parker, you said is, I wish I could fly, not in an airplane, but free like a bird. It would be beautiful to look down on the countryside. Well, we kind of figure you have a grown wings and started flying, but have you done parasailing or something like that?
I did in college. I did take soaring lessons, in a plane without an engine.
Gliders.
They
glider.
tow you up. One plane tows you up in the glider and then get up, 10,000 feet or whatever. And then there's a knob, big red knob on the dashboard. And you pull that knob and it releases the cable and you're alone up there.
Yeah.
Oh,
and I did that for about
Scary.
6 months. Yeah, it was scary, but pretty amazing. And I did that for about 6 months. And that's probably about as close as I ever got to actually flying. Although being underwater, scuba diving and stuff like that feels like you're flying a lot of the time. You kind of swoop around and you're weightless. And so that's probably the closest I've gotten.
But a follow-up question, too. Did you ever want to go to space?
I did. When I was a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut.
Oh, really?
During John Glenn and the Mercury missions and all of that. That's kind of what I grew up on, watching those launches.
Yeah, I love that.
Now I don't want to go. I don't want to go to space.
Not even those temporary 30-second up and down?
You don't want to go with Jeff Bezos or whoever it is that's flying everybody?
No, I don't.
William Shatner.
God bless them.
That's
Good
changed.
for them. I'm glad someone's doing it, but it's not for me.
Not for me either.
Last wish. Says, I'd love to go to China. The Orient has always intrigued me. It's just so fascinating.
Did you make it to, as they called it in the 70s, the Orient?
Yeah, that is kind of funny, isn't it?
Right.
Right.
No, I actually haven't. I've been to Australia a couple of times and New Zealand a couple of times, but I've never been to Japan or. No, I've never gone east like that, and for no particular reason. I mean, I actually would have loved it if a project had taken me there, because then you go in with people that are actually making sure your housing's okay and how you get around, and you meet people right away because they're with you, and that's a wonderful way to kind of discover a new place. But I've never sort of taken that on myself to do. I'm so comfortable in Europe because of all those aesthetics, the art. Painting, sculptures, architecture. It's just, it's for me, it's nirvana. Yeah, it's just wonderful. So I when I have an ability to go somewhere, I tend to go to Europe.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, cool.
Well, that's funny because some of your photos I looked at kind of looked like they were from the Orient.
Huh.
Yeah.
The photography.
And I
piece?
saw
yeah, the
somewhere that-
photography. Yeah.
I do believe that there are certain aesthetic values that translate cultures, whether it's Asian or European, Western, that, we tend to think of, Japanese prints as really being different, but Matisse was using them, Degas was using them. I mean, they were pulling all those aesthetics and compositions. I think when proportions and composition are right, it transcends all cultures. It doesn't matter what culture you're experiencing it from. It can affect you if it's correct, and correct on some very primal, basic way that humans respond to visuals and what we see.
Yeah.
So I don't know what would have been Asian in my pictures, but I'm sure those values are in there just because
Yeah, it was
they're
just
universal.
one particular picture, but I don't know, it was like a tree on a rock or something.
Oh, that's
There's trees on rocks in
Yeah,
Orient.
do you know which one I'm talking about?
That I know exactly. That tree is almost like a giant bonsai tree or something. That's Carmel. Carmel by the sea.
Oh,
So beautiful.
They call it the lone pine. It's a really kind of a well-known spot, but hitting the light at just the right moment, which is what that was for me, made it kind of become something else.
Yeah. Well, it was absolutely beautiful.
Well, speaking of places you love to visit, you like to go back to Maine because you have good childhood memories. Yeah.
I do. I spent all my summers up there on Mount Desert, which is where Acadia National Park is. My family, had been going there for a couple of generations, and every summer was up there. And then, and my dad, and mom spent summers up there as kids, and generations going back. And then I ended up with a place on an island in Penobscot Bay that I had for maybe 20 years. And I just loved going up there, and you take a ferry to get to it, and that's all magical. And I miss that. I miss my friends up there. I miss the experience of being on the island. We'll get back.
We have one here called the Shaun and Parker Answers to 40 Intimate Questions, but I am not going to ask you 39 of the 40, okay?
Okay. God bless you. Oh, I owe you. I owe you 39 times.
Oh, well, I'm going to take you up on that. And
we get chicken noodle soup for everybody.
Right.
But I mean, I'm just glancing at this and it's hard to pick, but I'm just going to go with, how does it feel to see yourself on TV?
Oh,
that's intimate.
That's a tiger.
I know,
right?
Question, right?
Well, I guess we're a 15-year-old girl.
Yeah. There's that one, or Parker, how come you never sang? I mean,
but Shaun did that.
Before you answer, Parker, I just want to say real quick, the way magazines were written back then, they were so innocent. Tiger Beat and all that. We've had many discussions on previous episodes, and today I don't know if they had a teen magazine and they were asking the intimate question, it would be, how did you see yourself on TV? Or
that's not an intimate question.
So I just wanted to say that real quick. I think the way kids are, it's a little different than how we were as 15-year-old, 13-year-old girls.
Yeah, I mean, I know. I was like trying to look through there, and I'm like, well, nothing really here is really intimate. So I just kind of randomly chose.
Well, it's the intrigue, right?
Yeah.
I'll answer them backwards.
Okay.
So why don't I sing? Because I don't. That's why it's very simple. You don't want me singing. You don't want me singing.
Me neither.
You don't want me singing. So that's why I don't sing. I'm doing everyone a big favor. And the other one, it's seeing yourself is very bizarre and doesn't usually connect. It's unreal. It doesn't really connect, And when I first saw myself, in commercials or something, it didn't make any sense. I was just, getting a job. And then when I did films, my first films in New York, I'd go, and I wouldn't go into the theater to watch, but I'd be across the street watching people come out to try to get a sense of, did they like it? Was the movie okay? What are they saying? But to see a film and your face is 40 feet tall is just, it's not you. It's something else up there, because it's not you, because you're sitting in the seat. You feel the armrests and the chair on your back. It's not you. It's something else. Yeah. And television falls somewhere in the middle. It's It's very surreal.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
doesn't
Shaun
make a
talks
lot of
about that with his
sense.
kids. Like his kids don't understand.
Yeah. Well, that's
Him back then.
interesting though.
Watching
You know,
it.
like you said, like it's not you, but in sense, I guess it isn't you. It's a character.
Yeah, it isn't
Well, you're
you,
acting.
and
Yeah.
it's the product of 100 or 200 or 500 other people's work.
Right.
Yeah.
I
But
kind of,
putting it together.
Everyone's in there. Everyone's in there. The cinematographers, the prop people, the makeup people, the directors, the writers, the editors, the studio, the marketing people. Everyone's shifting and making this thing, and we participate in that. Obviously, we have a part in that. But without the sound guy, you'd be back
Yeah.
in silent films. I mean, the whole thing is a group effort. So
Yeah.
it's not us.
But everybody sees you.
creating this.
Right.
Well, everyone sees you.
Mhm.
Yes, that's the.
And I read that you on the other side of it that you were a director like for Baywatch too.
Yeah, Baywatch and Melrose Place and Models Inc. and Savannah and I did a bunch of spelling shows for a while, and Baywatch was just so fun because I knew everybody, I knew the crew so well, I just knew how that all worked, how you go out in boats and shoot in the water and get it done quickly. How do you how
That's
do you
fun.
deal with hauling equipment across the beach? When you got all that stuff to get
Yeah.
out there quickly. Just all of that was.
Were you scared of the sharks out there?
I wasn't. No, I wasn't. No. That's never bothered me. I don't know. There are a lot of ways I could go, but I don't think that's one of them.
when you were saying surreal, like you watch it, but it's not really you. And I wanted to just say real quick, I think we're gonna all feel that next week when we play this back and edit and listen, because we are here right now doing this, and we have never done a podcast before, none of us. And I had some experience just playing around in radio, but I never been a host of a radio show or anything. So it's going to be surreal listening back, knowing that all these people are listening, and it's going to feel surreal that we have someone we grew up watching on TV and hung that 8x10 glossy on our wall. And to this day, I still carry, I told these ladies before, I have my Hardy Boys fan club membership card in the original wallet that it was in the day that I was in high school and got it. And it's in the nightstand, and it's been at every nightstand I've ever had since I was that age. So no matter where I move or what I do, I take that with me.
Yeah.
So wait, the question is it still active? Did yours expire yet?
So this is so surreal. I'm not going to believe
Yeah,
this.
I have my Hardy Boys stuff too that we got. Everything was in there, all the pictures, everything.
It was kind of like driving here today. I was just like, we're going to interview Parker.
Yeah.
And then I text my sister going, I'm going to interview Parker.
It's kind of full circle, you
it
have this experience when you're younger, right? And then you get older, you learn things and you grow and everything. And to come back to it and to reminisce and really see how special it was back then.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah.
And it's surreal. I'm
It's
telling you,
surreal.
when I have all my
And it stays
friends
with you.
listening, they're going to say, that's you?
It does stay with you. The experiences back then, you just keep to heart.
Well, yeah. I remember every bit, the Hardy Boys and, like I said, everything you've been in. And I don't remember having an 8x10 glossy as much as the centerfolds on my wall. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But back to that you didn't go watch yourself like on the screen and things, but you would stand outside to watch the people come out. Did you ever get recognized?
Not usually in those moments, because I'd be across the street and I'd kind of, be turned sideways and I could see where people were going. And I just, I was far enough away that I wouldn't get stopped there. But walking around New York, I'd get stopped because you're walking around New York. And I've never been comfortable in the subways or buses, so I just walk. I love walking in New York.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
It's really nothing. It's about a minute a block. So if you have to go 40 blocks, well, walk a little over half an hour.
Right.
Yeah, everything's right there.
So people would sometimes stop me, but people in New York, people in LA, people in most places are very chill. They're very cool. And if they say something, it's usually really sweet and it's quick, and they just say, thank you, love your work or something.
Right.
And it's nice. And on you go. The question I'd like to hear from you guys is how you guys all got together.
Yes, very interesting. We tried to summarize this as best we could.
Shaun.
So, yes, Shaun, of course, came out with shows again, so we decided to go. We live in the Chicago area, so we all went to the same show, and we met there. And then we did go see a show in Nashville also, and that's where we met Dame at. And we had a great time, and we hung out, and we were just having discussions, and we decided one day, you know what? There's not really a podcast out there about
Shaun.
Hopefully we'll have you on again one day, and we can continue our little discussion and figure out what was next on the Parker Stevenson list of adventures. Seems like you're like a friend, like an old buddy. It feels like we sat down and connected with someone we knew from high school or as a kid, and we're just catching up again. That's how comfortable you're making us feel.
Yeah.
Oh, well, and you all with me.
Hey, Parker, before you go, make sure to tell our listeners where they can find you.
They can find me. They can find me on Instagram, on Facebook, or you can even write me on Shadowworks, ParkerStevensonShadowworks.com, my photography website. There's a link. You can write me there.
And where can they follow your wife?
Chef Lisa Shaun, Schoen, Chef by Day. And
Chef
she's on
by Day.
Facebook,
Instagram,
and TikTok.
Thank you from the bottom of our teen dream hearts.
Keep on crushing.
Always believe in magic.
And have a peaceful, Shauntastic week.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. And make sure to keep in touch with us on our email.
Shaun Squad Society @gmail.com.
The Shaun Squad Society Podcast, including past, present, and future versions, and its contents are owned and controlled by the Shaun Squad Society. The views and opinions are solely those of the Shaun Squad Society Podcast. The Shaun Squad Society is written and produced and recorded at the Borden Studios. We may think we are always right, but we will get something wrong from time to time. So we assume no responsibilities or errors of submissions of content.